Welcome to the Valley. People don't ordinarily enjoy coming here. In fact, people all around the world choose to go to the 7 summits on the 7 continents and try to scale the high points. For example, in Australia, there's Mount Kosciuszko, a little over 7,000 feet. In Antarctica, yes, there is a mountain in Antarctica, Vincent Massif, over 16,000 feet high. Europe, Mount Elbrus, they go for 18,000 feet. And then off to Africa and to scale the heights of Mount Kilimanjaro, over 19,000 feet. North America makes a contribution to the 7 summits in the form of Mount McKinley, over 20,000 feet. South America, Mount Aconcagua, over 22,000 feet. And finally, we get to the rooftop of the world in Asia, Mount Everest, over 29,000 feet tall. Why do people try to scale the high points? They do it for fame, for prosperity, posterity, or as Sir Edmund Hillary said, he climbed Mount Everest because it was there. We grasp that humans want to scale into the heights, but few realize it's not the mountaintops that truly define us, but it's what happens in the valleys in between. You see, the mountains represent accomplishment, but those valleys down below represent development. Hello, I'm Ken Gurley. I'm the author of The Point of Low Points, the study guide for this small group journey. In the first video session, I want to introduce you to the worth of valleys in your life and try to interject the point of low points. Sir Edmund Hillary and his Sherpa guide Tenzing Norgay climbed to the rooftop of the world, the highest peak on God's green earth, over 29,000 feet in that rarefied atmosphere. They were on top of the mountain for a grand total of 15 minutes. But that 15 minutes of fame wrote their name into the history books and into the legend of humanity. That's why people love to scale the high points. The high points of accomplishment are simply not possible without the low points of development. Have you ever heard someone tell a story, a particularly long-winded story, and finally in exasperation you just say, please just give me the high points? Well, the Spirit of God wanted us to not just see the high points in the life of the man named Joseph, but God wanted us to see the low points that occurred in this young man's life. The dominant part of Genesis, when you consider it, it's not focused on creation. Neither is it focused on the father of the faithful, on Abraham. A bare chapter is given to Isaac, and then even a few more chapters are given to the supplanter and deceiver of Jacob. But the book of Genesis focuses on the life of Joseph. Joseph was not rewarded just because of his dreams. He was not rewarded just for saving Israel. God elevated the life story of Joseph for this single purpose, that he was faithful in the low points of life. Who knows the names of those who've conquered the valleys? In fact, in the truth have it, we shun people who are in the low points of life. I think we are afraid that it's contagious. As children in Sunday school, we used to sing a song, Climb, Climb Up Sunshine Mountains. And I do know that there are miracles in the mountaintops. So many of the pivotal things in the Bible took place on mountaintops. But as the enemies of Israel began to say God is a God of the mountains and not a God of the valleys. We speak ill of the valleys in our culture. The pioneers in their westward journey talked about Death Valley. In South Dakota, there are the Badlands. And then, of course, the deepest low point on the North American continent, the Grand Canyon. It's the high points that receive the praise of man. But in God's world, it's the low points that receive the praise of 2 nail-scarred hands. We tend to measure the height, but God measures the depth. Can you imagine those 40 years in the wilderness, Caleb longing for his mountain? Each year that would pass by, it just seemed that his mountain was farther beyond his reach. But he was faithful in the wilderness journey. He was faithful in the low points. Would to God that each of us would be found faithful in the low points of life. More likely, you're in a valley right now. I want you to know that we're serving the Messiah of every mess that man can make. We're serving the deity in every dungeon. We're serving the Lord of the low points. Let me give you some assurances from God about the low points that you're walking through. Number one, God will find us in our valley. He is called the lily of the valley. The second assurance is He changes us in the valley. Anytime God does not change your environment or your circumstances, just rest assured He is in the process of changing you. Because those mountaintops may define us, but it's the valleys that refine us. And then the third assurance that whatever you're going through right now, this cocoon of silence, this dungeon of darkness, God is preparing you for the light. What you receive in the darkness, one day you will speak openly in the light. It was Gideon, one of the judges of Israel, that asked the question, why? Lord, if you're with us, then why has all of this happened to us? That question, why, has been called the fish hook in every heart. I want you to know the president may live in the White House, but King Jesus lives in the White House, and He is quite capable of handling that question. The topography of every human life is different. What you go through, I may not go through. The low points you journey through may escape me. But I do know this, that each and every one of us will go through the valleys of life. And we need some combat gear. We need some climbing equipment. We need a soul staff that we can lean upon. Why should I study the low points? Joseph is the tour guide on the low points of life. I think we study the low points because we see a person who triumphed in every valley, who came through on the other side better than what he went into that valley. Joseph, our tour guide for these next 5 weeks, we're going to look at the 5 significant low points that happened early in the life of Joseph. I believe that these 5 low points are a way that each of us can find solace and comfort for the days ahead. And one more thing that you and I will find, and that's a glorious gift that I think is best illustrated with an old story written a century ago by a woman named Laura Richards. It's called The House of Golden Windows. The story is about a farm boy who worked very hard in the fields. But each and every day at sunset, when the chores were done, he would look out across a deep and rocky gorge, and he saw a house on the other side of the gorge. And as the sun was setting, he noticed that this house had golden windows. Oh, how he longed to go to that house. How he longed to see someone who was prospering more than he and his poor little family. One morning he got up before daybreak and his dad said, "Son, you have done some great work around the farm here. Here's what I want you to do. I want you today to take a holiday today. Just take the day off. But one important thing is I want you to learn something from your day off." He need say no more. Immediately the boy packed up a lunch and went down the path to the gorge. By the time the noon hour reached, he was already eating his lunch on the rocky slope on the other side. But it was late in the afternoon when he finally climbed out of the gorge and didn't see a house with golden windows. He saw a poor, humble cottage, much as his own. He went to the front door of the humble cottage. He knocked on the door, and a young girl answered. And he said, "I'm looking for the house with golden windows." She said, "It's not here. We're very poor." But she said, "If you want to see it, I can show it to you." And so she escorted him back to the edge of the gorge. And she lifted her hand and pointed to the other side of the gorge at his house, whose windows were gleaming in the evening sun. She said, "That's the house with golden windows." He raced down the gorge. He ran to the other side of the gorge, climbed up, and there was just a fringe aglow on the windows of his house. And he realized as he stepped in the door that something had changed in his mind. Something had changed in his heart. His father asked him, "Son, did you learn anything today from your day off?" He said, "Yes, I learned something. I learned that there are other people in the same shape that we're in, but I also learned that I have a house with golden windows." You see, it's the low point of life that can change your perspective. One trip through a valley, and you may realize the same lesson that this little boy learned, that God has put gold in your life, that He is at work in your life. And hopefully, through this entire series, you're going to see this, that the hand of the Lord is working in those low points to refine you where the world can better define you. I pray this session has been meaningful for you. Join with us in the small group study as we discuss Valley Fever.